Hello, welcome to our channel Learn to Score. In this video, I'm going to solve all the problems of Mathematics Model Paper Set 1 for year 2021 Andhra Pradesh State Board exam. I hope you will like the video. Please subscribe to our channel for regular updates and share this video with your friends so that it can be of use to them also. Thank you. This is Model Paper 1 given by SCERT for year 2021. The total marks you can score is 100 and time given is 2 hours 45 minutes. There are total 4 sections and 33 questions in this paper. Section 4 has got internal choice. It means section 1, 2, 3 have no choice. You have to write all the questions. And 15 minutes is given for reading the question paper and 2 hours 30 minutes for writing the answers. Let us start with questions. Question number 1. Which of the following points lies in Q3, that is quadrant 3? As you see here, this is Q1, Q2, Q3 and Q4. As you see here, in Q1 you have both X and Y positives. When it comes to Q2, this is X is negative and Y is positive. When it comes to Q3, X is negative and Y is also negative. And for Q4, X is positive and Y is negative, right? As you see here, minus 3 comma minus 2 is in Q3. So to answer the question, we say choice C is the answer. Let's go to the next question. That is question number 2. What are the zeros of x square minus 1? Let me call this polynomial as f of x, that is equal to x square minus 1. That can be written as x minus 1 times x plus 1, right? Use a square minus b square formula. Now, let's assume that beta is the 0 of f of x. It means f of beta is going to be equal to 0, right? F of beta equal to beta minus 1 times beta plus 1 equal to 0. This particular equation holds true when beta minus 1 equal to 0. It means beta is going to be 1. And when beta plus 1 equal to 0, it means beta is going to be minus 1, right? So 1 and minus 1 are the zeros of f of x equal to x square minus 1. To answer the question, choice B is the answer. Let's go to the next question. Question number 3. 7 by 5 is the 0 of 7x minus 5. Is it true or false? That is the question. We know that if f of x is a polynomial and a is a real number, then a is called 0 of f of x if and only if f of a equal to 0. This is read as if and only if f of a equal to 0. It means that when I substitute 7 by 5 into the given polynomial for x, if its value becomes 0, then 7 by 5 is going to be 0 of the polynomial, otherwise not. Let's do that now. Let me call the given polynomial as f of x equal to 7x minus 5, and let's substitute 7 by 5 for x. It means it is going to be f of 7 by 5, that is equal to 7 times 7 by 5 minus 5. When you simplify it, you get the answer as 24 by 5. It means f of 7 by 5 is not equal to 0. Since it is not equal to 0, we can now say that 7 by 5 is not the 0 of 7x minus 5, right? So answer is going to be false. Now, let's go to the next question. Question number 4. If tan theta equal to cot theta, then the value of acute angle theta is what? From this table, you can see that tan 45 degrees is 1 and cot 45 degrees is also equal to 1, right? It means the theta we are looking for is 45 degrees. Now let's go to the next question. Question number 5. In 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 and so on of arithmetic progression, what is the common difference? We know that list of numbers A1, A2, A3, A4 and so on is an arithmetic progression where the common difference D is defined as A2 minus A1 or A3 minus A2, A4 minus A3 and so on, right? Since it is already said that the given list is arithmetic progression, we can straight away compute the value of D by subtracting 2 from 4 or 4 from 6, right? Let's do that. D equal to 4 minus 2, that is equal to 2. Let's go to the next question, question number 6. Choose the correct answer from the following. Statement P says that sine 45 degrees is 1 by root 2 and statement Q says that tan 30 degrees equal to 1 by root 3. From the trigonometry table, we say that sine 45 degrees is 1 by root 2, that is means statement P is true, and tan 30 degrees is 1 by root 3 means statement Q is also true. So let's say that both P and Q are true, hence the choice C is the answer, right? Now let's go to the next question, question number 7. How many number of zeros exist for the following graph? As you see here, the function value of the given curve becomes 0 at these 2 points, right? It means you have 2 number of zeros for the given function or given curve. So let's write that. Number of zeros is 2. It means choice A is the answer, right? Let's go to the next question, question number 8. Let us match the following. Volume of cube, we know if side of the cube is A, then volume of cube is A cube. Let's connect that. And volume of cuboid is given as length times breadth times height, that is LBH. And lateral surface area of the cylinder is defined as 2 pi RH, where R is radius and H is height of the cylinder, right? Let's connect that. So now we can say that choice B is the answer, right? Let's go to the next question, question number 9. Let us match the following. Value of log 10 of base 10 is what? We know that log A at base A is 1, right? It means log 10 of base 10 is equal to 1. So let's connect that. The next thing we have to find is 0 of 2x minus 3, right? For that, we have to find value of x that satisfies the equation 2x minus 3 equal to 0, right? That can be written as 2x equal to 3. It means x equal to 3 by 2. Let's match that. Now we have to find the value of y when x equal to 2 and in x plus y equal to 5. X plus y equal to 5 and you have to substitute x equal to 2 into this equation such that you get y equal to 3. So let's connect that. Then we can say that choice C is the answer, right? Now let's go to the next question, question number 10. If A is a set containing elements 1 and 2 and B is the set containing elements 3 and 4, then what is A union B? That is the question. We know A union B is going to be the set containing all the elements of A and B, right? It means A union B is going to have elements 1, 2, 3 and 4. Let's write that. Now let's go to the next question, question number 11. What is the midpoint of line joining 2, 2 and 4, 4? We know midpoint is defined as x, y equal to x1 plus x2 divided by 2, y1 plus y2 divided by 2, right? Let's say that x1, y1 is 2, 2 and x2, y2 equal to 4, 4. Let's substitute these two into previous formula such that you will get x, y equal to 3, 3, right? To answer the question, midpoint of the line segment joining 2 points 2, 2 and 4, 4 is 3, 3. Let's go to the next question. That is question number 12. In mode, the equation is given mode equal to L plus F1 minus F0 divided by 2 times F1 minus F0 minus F2 times H, where L represents what is the question. In the mode formula, L denotes lower boundary of the model class, right? It means we know the answer already. It's better to recall what are the other variables are. H denotes size of the model class. F1 denotes frequency of model class. F0 is the frequency of class preceding the model class. F2 is the frequency of class succeeding the model class, right? Now to answer the question, we say choice C is the answer, right? In section 2, we have to answer all the questions and each question carries 2 marks. We have total 8 questions, right? Question number 13, write the all possible subsets of C equal to X, Y, Z, the set containing elements X, Y and Z, right? We have to write all possible subsets of this particular set. If every element of set A is an element of set C, then set A is called subset of C, right? That is denoted mathematically as A is subset to C. Now let's write the subsets of C. The sets containing only one element like X, Y and Z. These three are subsets of C, right? The sets containing only two elements are going to be also the subsets of set given here, right? XY, YZ, XZ, right? We know that every set is a subset of itself. It means set C is going to be a subset to itself. Let's write that also. That is set containing elements X comma Y comma Z. And we also know that the null set denoted using P, since it has got no elements, it is considered as a subset to every set. It means we can now write this set, that is null set, also as subset to C. Let's write that. So how many subsets we have? 3 plus 3 plus 2. Right? Total 8 subsets we have written. Let's go to the next question. Question number 14. Is 2t minus 1 equal to 2t plus 5 a linear equation in one variable? Let's rearrange this equation. This can be written as 2t minus 2t equal to 5 plus 1. Right? When you simplify it, it becomes 0 equal to 6. This is inconsistent, right? 0 cannot be equal to 6. That's why this equation given itself is not a correct equation. It is incorrect equation. Hence, we say that 2t minus 1 equal to 2t plus 5 is not a linear equation in one variable to answer. But if you have to say it is not even an equation, please note this. Now, 0 cannot be equal to 6. Let's go to the next question, question number 15. If p of x equal to 5x to the power 7 minus 6x power 5 minus 3x plus 8, find the coefficient of x power 5 and degree of p of x. Let us consider an algebraic equation. F of x equal to ax power n plus bx power n minus 1 plus cx plus d. Ax power n, bx power n minus 1, cx and d or d times x power 0 are called terms of the equation, right? And a, b, c, d are called coefficients. So now we can say coefficient of x5, x power 5 is going to be minus 6, right? And powers of x, those are n, n minus 1, those are n, n minus 1, 1 here, and x power 0 here. These are called exponents, right? So let's answer The quotient of x power 5 is minus 6. So first part is done. Now we have to say what is the degree of p of x. We know highest exponent of the terms in a polynomial is called its degree, right? The highest exponent. So we have already said these powers are called exponents, right? The highest exponent is 7. So degree of p of x is going to be 7, right? Let's go to the next question. Question number 16. 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10, 15 and so on is an arithmetic progression or not is the question, and why. An arithmetic progression is a list of numbers in which each term is obtained by adding a fixed number to the preceding term except the first term. It means when you keep adding some fixed term, when you add some fixed term to 2, you will get 3, and when you add the same fixed term you have to get 5 and so on, right? That is the whole idea. If it is an arithmetic progression, then that has to be satisfied. The fixed number is called common difference of the arithmetic progression. For example, if you consider a1, a2, a3, a4 and so on as an arithmetic progression, then a2 minus a1 is going to be equal to a3 minus a2, that is going to be equal to a4 minus a3 and so on, that is equal to a constant that is called common difference. That is the fixed difference. D is the fixed difference or fixed number, that is called common difference, right? Let's see whether we have that here or not. a2 minus a1 is 1, right? 3 minus 2 equal to 1. a3 minus a2, that is 5 minus 3, is equal to 2. So you already have seen that there is no common difference, right? Let's check further. a4 minus a3, that is 7 minus 5, that is equal to 2. When it comes to the next pair, that is a5 minus a4, that is 8 minus 7, that is equal to 1. So there is no common difference, right? The given series doesn't have a fixed number as the difference between successive terms. Here you have 1. When it comes to these two terms, you have 2. These two terms 2 and next two terms 1. Hence, the given series is not an arithmetic progression. Please note this. Let's go to the next question. Question number 17. What is the probability for drawing a red king from the deck of cards? When you arrange the deck of cards, you get the arrangement like this. As you see here, we say event E is drawing a red king, right? We have 2 red kings in this whole deck, right? It means the favorable outcomes is 2. Whereas the number of all possible outcomes is 52 because we have total 52 cards. Please note this. So probability is defined as number of favorable outcomes divided by all possible outcomes, right? Hence P of E is going to be 2 divided by 52, that is equal to 1 by 26. So to answer the question, probability of getting a red king is 1 by 26. Let's go to the next question, that is question number 18. Write the formula to find median of a grouped data. We know median is equal to L plus n by 2 minus Cf divided by f times h, where L is lower boundary of the median class, n is number of observations, f is frequency of the median class, Cf is cumulative frequency of class preceding the median class, and h is class size or size of the median class. Please note this formula. Let's go to the next question, that is question number 19. Find the coordinate of centroid of a given triangle whose vertices are 3, minus 5, minus 7, 4 and 10, minus 2. centroid of a triangle is defined as x1 plus x2 plus x3 divided by 3, comma y1 plus y2 plus y3 divided by 3. Let's say that x1 comma y1 is 3 comma minus 5, x2 comma y2 equal to minus 7 comma 4, and x3 comma y3 equal to 10 comma minus 2. Let's substitute these three pairs into the centroid formula and simplify it such that you get centroid x comma y is 2 comma minus 1. Let's write that. Centroid of the given triangle is 2 comma minus 1. Let's go to the next question. Question number 20. Rinki observed a ball on the ground from the balcony of first floor of a building at an angle of depression theta. If the height of the first floor of the building is x meters, draw the diagram for this data. So Rinki observed the ball on the ground from balcony of first floor of a building, right? Let's say that height of the first floor of the building is AB equal to x meters, right? And Rinki has observed the ball from the first floor at an angle of depression theta. Let's say that location of the ball is C. And now we have to mark angle of depression, right? Angle of depression is theta. It means when you draw horizontal level from the eye of Rinki, the line of sight, the angle between line of sight and horizontal level is going to be the angle of depression, right? So this is the angle of depression. That is equal to theta. And we know that alternate interior angles are going to be equal, right? It means angle BCA is equal to theta, right? Now you have a right triangle, triangle ABC or triangle ABC, where angle C is equal to theta, which is an acute angle, right? Section 3 has total 8 questions. We have to answer all the questions. Each question carries 4 marks. It means we'll get 8 times 4, that is equal to 32 marks out of this section. Let's take a look at questions. Question number 21. Write 2 log 3 plus 3 log 5 minus 5 log 2 as a single logarithm. Let's quickly recall third law of logarithm. It says that m log can be written as log x to the power of m, right? If you observe, 2 log 3 is in the form of m log x, right? That can be now written as log 3 square. Similarly, 3 log 5 can be written as log 5 cube, and 5 log 2 can be written as log 2 power 5, right? Let's write that now. 2 log 3 plus 3 log 5 minus 5 log 2 equal to log 3 square plus log 5 cube minus log 2 power 5. Let's simplify these terms. Log 3 square can be written as log 9, and log 5 cube is log 125, and log 2 power 5 is log 32, right? Now if you observe, you have plus sign here, we have minus sign here, right? Let's quickly recall the first law of logarithm. It says that log x plus log y equal to log xy, right? If you apply the first law for these two, log 9 plus log 125, we can write it as log 9 times 125, right? And let's keep this as is for time being and write it now. Log 9 times 125 minus log 32, right? Let's simplify this. 9 times 125 is 1125. Now we have log of 1125 minus log 32, right? Let's quickly recall the second law of logarithms. It says that log x minus log y equal to log x by y, right? As you see here, log 1125 minus log 32 is there, right? We can write it as log of 1125 divided by 32, right? As per the second law. Let's write that. So this is what we are asked to expressed as, we are given 3 logarithms, sum and 2 log 3 plus 3 log 5 minus 5 log 2, that we have expressed it as a single logarithm, that is log of 1125 divided by 32, right? Now let's go to the next question, that is question number 22. The area of rectangular plot is 528 meters square. Length of the plot is 1 more than twice its breadth. Actually, there is a typo. Actually, full stop shouldn't be there. We need to find, we need to find the length and breadth of the plot. Let's assume that breadth of the plot is x meters. So length of the plot is 1 more than twice of its breadth, right? It means length of the plot is going to be 2x plus 1, 2 times breadth plus 1, right? So when you draw a figure, you get a rectangle like this. X is its breadth and its length is 2x plus 1 and its area is 528 meters square. Now let's write area, that is length by width or length by breadth, that is equal to 2x plus 1 times x, right? That is equal to 528 meters square. This can be simplified and written as 2x square plus x. When you multiply 2x with x and 1 with x, you get 2x square plus x on left hand side, that is equal to 528. When you rearrange this, you will write it as 2x square plus x minus 528 equal to 0. This is a quadratic equation, right? What we would be saying now is we have to solve this particular equation to get the value of x, so that you know the breadth of the plot and then you can compute the length of the plot, right? We have to find roots of 2x square plus x minus 528 equal to 0. For that, I am going to use quadratic formula. For ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0, the quadratic formula defines the roots as minus b, sorry, x equal to minus b plus or minus square root of b square minus 4ac divided by 2a, right? Now let's compare ax square plus bx plus c with 2x square plus x minus 528 equal to 0, so that you can say a equal to 2, b equal to 1 and c equal to minus 528, right? Let's substitute these values into quadratic formula such that you will get the value of x. When you substitute b equal to 1 and a equal to 2 and c equal to minus 528 and simplify it, you get the answer as minus 1 plus or minus square root of 4225 divided by 4, right? You further simplify it such that square root of 4225 is written as 65. So you have now answer minus 1 plus or minus 65 divided by 4. I can take plus 65 or minus 65, right? If I take minus 65, I'm going to get value of x a negative number, right? Minus 65 minus 1, that is going to be minus 66 divided by 4. That is why we are not going to take minus 65 into consideration, because your breadth cannot be a negative number. For that reason, let me take only plus 65. When I take plus 65, x is going to be 64 by 4, that is equal to 16, right? Let me write now, the breadth of the plot is 16 meters and length of the plot is going to be 2x plus 1, right? Means 2 times 16 plus 1. When you simplify it, it is 33 meters. So breadth of the plot is 16 meters and length of the plot is 33 meters. This is what we are asked to find. Now let's solve the next problem, that is question number 23. If A is a set containing elements 0, 2 and 4, then find A intersection phi, A intersection A and A union phi and comment. It is given that A equal to a set containing elements 0, 2 and 4, right? We know that phi is a null set, right? P is the null set means it has no elements. So if you see the number of elements of set P, it is going to be 0, right? Now let's see what is intersection. Elements common to set A and B are denoted as A intersection B. That is what it is written here in mathematical form. A intersection B is the set containing elements common to set A and set B, right? Now we are asked to find A intersection Phi, right? It means we have to find the elements which are common to A and Phi, right? A and Phi have no common elements because Phi has no elements. That's why A and Phi have no common elements. Hence we say that A intersection Phi is a null set. Means it has no common elements or no elements, right? So one can say that A intersection Phi is Phi, right? Now let's go to A intersection A. We said that A intersection A is going to be the elements common to set A and set A, right? Means A intersection A is going to be the set containing the same elements as A, right? Hence I can say that A intersection A is A. Now let's go to the third part, that is A union Phi. A union B is defined as the set containing all the elements of A and B, right? A union Phi is going to be the set containing all the elements of A and Phi, right? Phi has no elements. Hence, the set containing all the elements of A and Phi is going to be 0, 2 and 4. Hence, I can say that A union Phi is A. So when you are asked to comment, you say that A intersection Phi is Phi, A intersection A is A, and A union Phi is A. Now let's go to the next question. That is question number 24. Find the quadratic polynomial if the zeros of it are 2 and minus 1 by 3 respectively. You are given two zeros of the quadratic polynomial and you are asked to find the quadratic polynomial. Let us consider a quadratic polynomial f of x equal to ax square plus bx plus c. We know based on the relation between coefficients and the zeros of quadratic polynomial, we can say that sum of zeros of a quadratic polynomial is negative of quotient of x divided by quotient of x square. For the case of ax square plus bx plus c, it can be written as minus b by a, right? And product of zeros is given as constant divided by quotient of x square, right? Constant is c and quotient of x square is a. So product of zeros is c by a, right? Now we know the values of zeros, 2 and minus 1 by 3, right? Now let's find the sum of those two zeros, that is equal to minus b by a, right? Let's write minus b by a equal to 2 plus minus 1 by 3. These two are the zeros, right? When you sum them, you get 6 minus 1 divided by 3, that is equal to 5 by 3. I can write it as minus b by a equal to 5 by 3. When you rearrange it, I can write it as b equal to minus 5a divided by 3, right? Or minus 5 by 3 times a. Now let's go to the product of zeros. The zeros are 2 and minus 1 by 3. Their product is equal to c by a. So c by a equal to 2 times minus 1 by 3, that is minus 2 by 3, right? This can be now written as c equal to minus 2 by 3 times a. Let's take a note of these two. b is expressed as function of a and c is also expressed as function of a, right? Let's assume that a equal to 1. It means b is going to be minus 5 by 3, right? C is going to be minus 2 by 3. Let's substitute these values, a equal to 1, b equal to minus 5 by 3 and c equal to 2 by 3 into the given quadratic polynomial ax square plus bx plus c. When you substitute, you get the quadratic polynomial as x square minus 5 by 3x minus 2 by 3, right? This is what we are asked to Let us see the next question, that is question number 25. Prove that the points A, that is minus 7 comma 3, B 5 comma 10, C 15 comma 8, and D 3 comma minus 5 taken in order are the vertices of a parallelogram. A parallelogram can be drawn like this. We know that opposite sides of a parallelogram are equal. That is one of the properties of the parallelogram. The other property of interest for us is the diagonals of parallelogram bisect each other. It means the midpoint of the diagonals is same. Right? If we can prove that for the given geometry ABCD, if opposite sides of the given geometry are equal and the midpoints of diagonals are the same, then we can say that the given geometry is a parallelogram. Right? That is the whole idea. Why we chose only these two properties? Because from the coordinate geometry chapter, you can find the distances to see whether opposite sides of the parallelogram are equal or not. And we know the midpoint formula, right? We can see the midpoint of the diagonals, whether they are same or not. That's why we chose these two properties. Otherwise, you have many more properties for this. At least 3-4 other properties will be there to identify whether given geometry is a parallelogram or not. So let's start with the distance between 2 points formula. That is, distance between x1 y1 and x2 y2 is given as square root of x2 minus x1 whole square plus y2 minus y1 whole square. Right? Now let me find the distance between A and B. Right? Distance between A, that is minus 7 comma 3, and B, that is 5 comma 10. When you substitute them for x1 y1 and x2 y2, this is x1 y1 and this is x2 y2, then you will get it as square root of 313. So AB is square root of 313, right? Now let's find the distance between the points D and C, because that is the opposite side to AB, right? The distance between D and C, D is 3 comma minus 5 and C is 15 comma 8. When you substitute 3 comma minus 5 for x1 y1 and 15 comma 8 for x2 y2 and simplify the equation, you get the distance as square root of 313, right? Hence I can say that these two sides DC or CD is equal to BC, right? Now let's find the distance between A and D, this one. So A is minus 7 comma 3, minus 7 comma minus 3, and D is 3 comma minus 5, right? When you substitute that into the distance formula and simplify it, you get the distance as square root of 104. Let me write that, square root of 104. Now find the distance between B and C, because that is the opposite side, right? The distance between B 5 comma 10 and C 15 comma 8 is also equal to square root of 104. Hence I can say that the opposite sides of the given geometry are equal, right? Let's write that. Opposite sides of the given geometry that are equal, it means AB equal to CD and AD equal to BC. Let's take a note of that. And now see whether the midpoint of the diagonals is same or not. We know midpoint xy is defined as x1 plus x2 divided by 2 comma y1 plus y2 divided by 2, right? Now let's find the midpoint of AC. AC is one of the diagonals, right? A is minus 7 comma minus 3 and C is 15 comma 8. When you substitute those for x1 y1 and x2 y2 into this equation and simplify, you get it as 4 comma 2.5. The midpoint of AC is 4 comma 2.5. That is here. let's say, right? Now let's see the midpoint of DB or BD. B is 5 comma 10. Sorry, this is D is 3 comma minus 5. When you substitute those two into the midpoint formula and simplify, you get the answer as 4 comma 2.5. It means the midpoint of one diagonal AC is exactly equal to the midpoint of other diagonal, that is BD, right? The midpoint O is 4 comma 2.5. The midpoint is the same. We also said that opposite sides of given geometry are of equal length, right? Hence we can say that ABCD given is a parallelogram. In other words, the vertices given are the points given A, B, C and D are the vertices of the parallelogram. Please note that. Now let's go to the next question. Question number 26. Find the mode of the given data. Family size is given and number of families is given. As you see here, this particular data, the number of families is the frequency in this particular table. 8 is the bigger number, right? Or the biggest number. Frequency of family size 3 to 5 is 8, which is a bigger number. It means this particular family has frequently occurred, right? Hence we say that this particular class 3 to 5 is the model class, right? It means mode is going to lie in the model class. Means mode is going to be in between 3 to 5. Now we have to find what is the mode. We know the formula for mode, right? In this paper itself it is given. Mode equal to L plus F1 minus F0 divided by 2 times F1 minus F0 minus F2 times H, where L is the lower boundary of the model class. For this particular case, the lower boundary is 3 because the model class is 3 to 5, right? H is size of the model class, that is 5 minus 3 equal to 2. F1 is the frequency of model class, that is known, that is 8. F0 is the frequency of class preceding the model class. Class preceding the model class is 1 to 3 class and its frequency is 7. F2 is the frequency of class succeeding the model class. The class succeeding the model class is 5 to 7 class. Its frequency is 2. Let's substitute all these values into the formula given and simplify such that you get mode as 3.26. So to answer the question, mode of the given data is 3.26. Please note this. Let's go to the next problem. That is question number 27. Show that square root of 1 plus sin A divided by 1 minus sin A equal to sec A plus tan A. Let us consider right hand side expression, that is sec A plus tan A, right? We know sec A can be written as 1 by cos A and tan A can be written as sin A by cos A, right? If I take cos A as LCM and simplify the expression, I'll get it as 1 plus sin A divided by cos A, right? Now RHS is 1 plus sin A divided by cos A. Let's stop here and go to LHS. LHS is given, that is equal to square root of 1 plus sin A divided by 1 minus sin A, right? I can write it as square root of 1 plus sin A divided by square root of 1 minus sin A, right? If you observe the numerators of RHS, that is 1 plus sin A, and numerator of LHS, that is square root of 1 plus sin A. The only difference is square root extra is here on LHS side, right? We want to get rid of that. How do you do that? If I multiply the whole of the LHS, both numerator and denominator, with square root of 1 plus sin A, then we are going to simplify this such that numerators of both RHS and LHS are going to be equal, right? So let's multiply both numerator and denominator with square root of 1 plus sin a. When you do that, this can be written as, because you have square root of 1 plus sin a times square root of 1 plus sin a, I can write it as square root of 1 plus sin a whole square, right? If you take a look at the denominator, I have square root of 1 minus sin a and times square root of 1 plus sin a, right? We can take the whole thing into the root such that it becomes square root of 1 minus sin a times 1 plus sin a, right? That can be written as square root of 1 minus sin square a, right? Now I can drop this square root and this square, right? When I drop it, I'll get the numerator as 1 plus sin a, and we know that 1 minus sin square a is equal to cos square a. So that's why I have written denominator as square root of cos square a. Now I can cancel the square root and this 2 power 2, right? So that I can write it as 1 plus sin a divided by cos a. Now you observe this. We started with LH, that is square root of 1 plus sin a divided by 1 minus sin a, and simplified it such that we got 1 plus sin a divided by cos a, right? That is what the term we got for the RHS also. Now I can say that LHS is equal to RHS, that is 1 plus sin a divided by cos a, right? It means I can say that sec a plus tan a equal to square root of 1 plus sin a divided by 1 minus sin a, right? This is what we are asked to show. Let's go to the next question. This is the last question of this particular section. A die is thrown once. Find the probability of getting a prime number, a number lying between 2 and 6, an odd number, and multiple of 3, right? The experiment here is throwing the dice once. The possible outcomes are, you may get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, right? So the sample space is going to have elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So all possible outcomes are this. So number of all possible outcomes is 6. Now let's take the first part of the question, that is a prime number, or probability of getting a prime number. So event E is getting a prime number. So as you see here, what are the prime numbers? 2 is prime number, 3 is prime number, and 5 is prime number, right? Remaining all are not prime numbers. Hence, the sample space, event space is going to have the elements 2, 3, and 5. The number of elements in this space is 3. That's why the number of favorable outcomes is 3. We know that probability of event E is defined as number of outcomes favorable to event E divided by number of all possible outcomes of the experiment, right? So favorable outcomes is 3 divided by all possible outcomes, that is 6. So answer is 1 by 2. So let me write that. Probability of getting a prime number is 1 by 2. Now let's go to the second part, that is a number lying between 2 and 6. Event E here is getting a number lying between 2 and 6. The numbers lying between 2 and 6 are 3, 4, and 5. So the number of favorable outcomes here is 3, right? So let's find the probability now. It is going to be 3 by 6, that is equal to 1 by 2. 3 is number of favorable outcomes and 6 is number of all possible outcomes. So to answer the question, probability of getting a number lying between 2 and 6 is half. Let's go to the third part, that is an odd number. Probability of getting an odd number. As you see here, the event space is going to have elements 1, 3, and 5, right? Because 2, 4, and 6 are even numbers. So number of favorable outcomes for this particular event is 3. It means the probability is going to be 3 by 6, that is equal to half, right? Let me write that. Probability of getting an odd number is half. Now the last part, probability of getting multiple of 3. The event is getting a multiple of 3. What are the multiples of 3 in this? 3 and 6, right? It means number of favorable outcomes are just 2. So the probability is going to be 2 by 6, that is equal to 1 by 3, right? So let's write that. Probability of getting a multiple of 3 is 1 by 3. This is what we are asked to find, right? Section 4 has 5 questions. We have to answer all the questions. Each question carries 8 marks, but there is an internal choice for each question. Let us take a look at the questions. Question number 29, choice 1. A is a set of even primes. B is a set of natural numbers less than 12. And C is a set of multiples of 4 less than or equal to 12. D is a set of factors of 12, right? We are asked to find A union B, B intersection C, C minus D, and A minus D, right? Let's start with set A. It is a set of even prime numbers. We know that 2 is the only even prime number. That's why this set contains only one element, that is number 2. Set B is a set of natural numbers less than 12. It means B is going to have numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11 because it has to be less than 12, right? Now set C is a multiple of 4 less than or equal to 12. What are multiples of 4? 4, 8 and 12, right? Because it is said that it has to be less than or equal to 12. Set D is a set of factors of 12. 1 is a factor of 12, 2 is a factor, 3 is a factor, 4 is a factor, 6 is a factor, and 12 is a factor itself for 12, right? That's why this has got elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 and 12. Now let's see what is A union B. Since we got all the sets A, B, C, D, let's start with answering the questions. A union B. A union B is the set containing all the elements of A and B, right? It means we have to include all the elements of set A and set B such that you will get the set A union B. That is going to be the set containing elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11, right? As you see here, 2 is present in set A and set B also. But when you are writing the set in roster form, you will include only once. That's why we have written 2 only once. I hope you got the concept. Now let's go to B intersection C. Elements common to sets B and C is denoted as B intersection C, right? That is written here. It is about the elements common to set B and set C. Let's see. Now set C has got number 4, 8 and 12. Whereas set B has got 4 and 8 but 12 is not there, right? That's why B intersection C is going to have only 4 and 8. Let's write that. B intersection C is a set containing elements 4 and 8, right? Now let's go to C minus D. C minus D is defined as a set containing elements of C but not the elements of D. It means X has to belong to C and X should not belong to D. Means, if you take numbers like 4, 8 and 12, these elements should be there in C, means these are there, but these elements that should not be there in set D. Means 4 is there, 12 is there, 8 is only element that is there in the C set but not in the D, right? You got it? The element X has to be there in set C but not there in set D. It means only 8 is there in set C but not there in set D. That's why we write C minus D as the set containing only one element, that is 8. Right? Now let's see what is A minus D. A minus D is defined as the set containing elements X such that X belongs to A and X should not belong to D, or X doesn't belong to D. Here if you see 2 is there in set A, right? But 2 is there in the set D also. It means A minus D is going to have no elements, right? That's why we write it as an empty set. A minus D is an empty set or null set, right? This is what we are asked to find. Now let's go to the next question, that is choice 2 of question number 29. If log x plus y divided by 3 equal to half log x plus log y, then find the value of x by y plus y by x. Let's start with RHS of given equation, that is half log x plus log y, right? We know first law of logarithm states that log x plus log y equal to log xy, right? It means I can write it as half log xy. The third law says that m log x equal to log x power m. If you observe, half log xy can be written as log xy power half, right? Now, since we have simplified the RHS, let's write LHS equal to RHS, that is log of x plus y divided by 3 equal to log xy power half. Now I can drop log on both the sides, right? If I drop log on both the sides, I can write it as x plus y divided by 3 equal to xy power half, right? Now let's square on both the sides. Now it becomes x plus y divided by 3 whole square equal to xy, right? Let me write it as x plus y whole square divided by 3 square equal to xy, and we know 3 square equal to 9. It means x plus y whole square equal to 9xy, right? We can expand x plus y whole square using a plus b whole square formula that says that a plus b whole square equal to a square plus b square plus 2ab, right? When you apply that formula, you can write it as x square plus y square plus 2xy equal to 9xy, right? Let me rearrange the equation further such that I can write it as x square plus y square equal to 7xy. Let's note this x square plus y square equal to 7xy and go back to the problem given, that is we have to find the value of x by y plus y by x, right? This can be written as x square plus y square divided by xy, right? Now we know x square plus y square equal to 7xy. Let's substitute that. It means we are going to have 7xy divided by xy. Once you cancel this xy and this xy, what you get is 7. So answer is x by y x by y plus y by x equal to 7. Now let's go to the next question, that is question number 30, choice 1. For which acute angle theta, cos theta by 1 minus sin theta plus cos theta by 1 plus sin theta is equal to 4 is true. We have to find the acute angle theta, right? Now let's consider LHS, that is cos theta divided by 1 minus sin theta plus cos theta divided by 1 plus sine theta. When you simplify it, you can write it as the denominator is going to be the product of 1 minus sine theta and 1 plus sine theta, right? The numerator, this cos theta and this 1 plus sine theta you will be multiplying, right? Plus this cos theta and 1 minus sine theta will be multiplied such that you will have it as cos theta times 1 plus sine theta plus cos theta times 1 minus sine theta divided by 1 minus sine theta times 1 plus sine theta, right? Let's further expand this. You can multiply cos theta times 1 and cos theta times sine theta, right? Like that, when you do it, you will get it as cos theta plus cos theta times sine theta plus this particular cos theta times 1 is cos theta here, then cos theta sine theta with negative sign, right? And denominator is kept as is. Now this is plus cos theta sine theta and this is minus cos theta sine theta. I can cancel them so that in the in the numerator you have cos theta plus cos theta. Denominator is kept as is, right? Now I can write it as cos theta plus cos theta equal to 2 cos theta, and 1 minus sine theta times 1 plus sine theta can be written as 1 minus sine square theta, right? Let's do that. 2 cos theta divided by 1 minus sine square theta. We know 1 minus sine square theta is cos square theta, right? This is one of the identities. So let's write 2 cos theta divided by cos square theta. Now what I can do is I can cancel this cos theta and this square, right? Now what you have is 2 divided by cos theta. Let's now equate LHS to RHS. That says cos theta divided by 1 minus sine theta plus cos theta divided by 1 plus sine theta equal to 4. That is equal to 2 by cos theta, right? It means 2 by cos theta equal to 4. It means cos theta equal to 2 by 4, that is equal to half. From the trigonometry tables, we know that cos theta equal to half means theta is 60 degrees. So answer is theta equal to 60 degrees. For that, this given expression or given equation is true. Let's go to the next problem. That is choice 2 of question number 30. Prove that sin A plus cosec A whole square plus cos A plus sec A whole square equal to 7 plus tan square A plus cot square A. Let's consider the first term, that is sin A plus cosec A whole square. If you apply A plus B whole square formula, you can write it as sin square A plus cosec square A plus 2 sin A cosec A, right? We know sin A equal to 1 by cosec A, or cosec A equal to 1 by sin A. When you apply that, these two get cancelled. It means you'll have it as sin square A plus cosec square A plus 2. Now similarly, let's expand cos A plus sec A whole square. That can be written as cos square A plus sec square A plus 2 cos A sec A. We know cos A equal to 1 by sec A, right? It means we can cancel these two also. Hence, it can be written as cos square A plus sec square A plus 2. Now let's simplify the LHS. That can be now written as sin square A plus cosec square A plus 2 cos square A plus sec square A plus 2, right? This can be written as sin square A plus cosec square A plus cos square A plus sec square A plus 4. Let me rearrange it such that I can write it as 4 times sin square A plus cos square A. This is one identity. It says that sin square A plus cos square A equal to 1, right? And let's write the remaining terms as is. Now this can be, as per this particular identity, cos square theta plus sin square theta equal to 1, I can write it as 1, right? We know that cosec square A and sec square A can be also written in different way using the trigonometric identities. Sec square theta equal to 1 plus tan square theta, right? This is what it is saying. Cosec square theta is going to be 1 plus cot square theta. Let's substitute them. For cosec square A, we'll be writing 1 plus cot square A. And sec square A, you will be writing 1 plus tan square A. Let's write that. When you further simplify it, you can get 7 plus cot square A plus tan square A. This is what we are asked to show, right? Sin A plus cosec A whole square plus cos A plus sec A whole square equal to 7 plus cot square A plus tan square A, right? Let's solve the next question. That is question number 31, choice 1. The mean pocket allowance is 18 rupees. Find the missing frequencies is the question. We are given data for daily pocket allowance as group distribution data and number of children. The frequency is given where F is given for the class 19 to 21. We have to find the value of F. The mean of this data is given, that is 18. This can be written as the class interval 11 to 13 equal to 7, 13 to 15 equal to 6. So I have tabulated again. We know that the mean x bar is defined as sigma fi xi divided by sigma fi, right? Where fi is the frequency of given class and xi is the class interval, right? But sorry, class mark. Here we know the class interval, that is 11 to 13, 13 to 15. We have to find the class mark. Class mark is defined as upper class limit plus lower class limit divided by 2. If I use this, the class mark for the first class is going to be 11 plus 13. 11 plus 13 divided by 2, that is equal to 12. Similarly, for the next class, it is going to be 13 plus 15 divided by 2, that is equal to 14. For the next class, it is 16. For the next class, it is 18. For the next class, it is 20. Next class, it is 22. And for the last class, it is 24. Now we know Fi, we know Xi, right? So we can now find Fi Xi such that we can get sigma Fi Xi, right? Let's do that now. Fi Xi is going to be 7 times 12 for the first class, that is equal to 84. For the next class, it is 6 times 14, that is also equal to 84. For the next class, it is 9 times 16. For the next one, 13 times 18. For the next one, it is f times 20. I'm writing it as 20f. Please note this. The next one, it is 5 times 22, that is 110. And the last one, it is 4 times 24, that is 96. Now let's find the value of sigma Fi Xi. It means we have to add these numbers. 84 plus 84 plus 144 plus 234 plus 20f plus 110 plus 96. When you sum them, you can write it as 752 plus 20f. Otherwise, when you are summing, you don't sum this and keep it separate and sum the rest of them so that you get 752 and then add 20f to it. So sigma Fi Xi is 752 plus 20f. Now let's find the value of sigma Fi. That is 7 plus 6 plus 9 plus 13 plus 5 plus 4 plus f, right? When you do that, you get it as 44 plus f. Now let's substitute these two, sigma Fi and sigma Fi Xi, into this formula. And we know x bar is given, that is equal to 18, right? 18 equal to 752 plus 20f divided by 44 plus f. Let's rearrange this equation such that I can write it as 18 times 44 plus f equal to 752 plus 20f. This can be further simplified and written as 792 plus 18f equal to 752 plus 20f. Let's rearrange this such that you get 2f equal to 40. It means f equal to 20. So the missing frequency is f equal to 20. Right? Now let's go to the next question, that is choice 2 of question number 31. Find the coordinates of the points of trisection of the line segment joining the points 4 comma minus 1 and minus 2 comma minus 3. We have to find the coordinates of trisection of the line segment joining these 2 points. The points dividing the line segment into 3 equal parts are called trisection points. You got it? The points, 2 points you use such that line segment is split into 3 equal parts. If we are given line segment AB, the points PQ are chosen such that AP equal to PQ equal to QB, right? It has become 3 equal parts. If AP equal to PQ equal to QB, then we say that P and Q are the points of trisection of line segment AB. Now we are given, let's say that A and B are given. Those are these 2 points, and we have to find P and Q such that AP equal to PQ equal to QB, so that we will be in a position to answer the coordinates of the points of trisection of the line. But doing this in coordinate geometry, we know section point formula, that is given as x comma y equal to m1 x2 plus m2 x1 divided by m1 plus m2, comma m1 y2 plus m2 y1 divided by m1 plus m2, right? Now let us consider point P. It is dividing AB into 2 parts, right? AP is of length 1, let's say, then PB is going to be of length 2. That's why M1 is to M2 is going to be 1 is to 2. And let me say that x1 comma y1 equal to 4 comma minus 1 and x2 comma y2 is minus 2 comma minus 3. Let now substitute all these into the section point equation or the section point formula. When you do that and simplify it, you get P of xy as 2 comma minus 5 by 3. Let us note this. And now let's try to find the value of Q, right? Let us consider Q. As you see here, it divides AB into 2 parts, right? This is part 1 and this is part 2. But if you see the ratio, it is going to be 2 is to 1, right? That's why I say M1 is to M2 equal to 2 is to 1. The difference is only M1 is to M2 is different now compared to the previous case, right? There it was 1 is to 2. Here it is 2 is to 1. A is same, that is 4 comma minus 1, and B is same, that is minus 2 comma minus 3. Let's substitute all these into section point formula, and when you simplify it, you get Q as 0 comma minus 7 by 3, right? Let's write, to answer the question, let's write it as coordinates of the points of trisection of the line segment AB are P, that is equal to 2 comma minus 5 by 3, and Q, that is 0 comma minus 7 by 3. This is what we are asked to find. Let's go to the next question, that is choice 1 of question number 32. State and prove Pythagoras theorem. Pythagoras theorem is stated as follows. In a right triangle, square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other 2 sides. Let us consider triangle ABC, right angled at angle A, right angled at A, right? As you see here, the side opposite to the right angle is BC, right? That is called hypotenuse. Let me write that. So as per the Pythagoras theorem, in a right triangle, square of the hypotenuse is equal to sum of the squares of the other 2 sides. It means to prove the Pythagoras theorem, we have to show that BC square equal to AB square plus AC square, right? Let's do that now. Let us draw line AM perpendicular to BC as shown here. As you see here, the line drawn AM is dividing the triangle ABC into 2 right angle triangles, right? Those are triangle AMB and triangle AMC. We know from a theorem in triangles chapter or similar triangles chapter, it says that in a right triangle, the perpendicular drawn from vertex of the right angle to hypotenuse divides the triangle into two right triangles. This is what we have just seen, right? But the statement we have to understand further is when this happens, when you draw a perpendicular from vertex of right angle to hypotenuse of the right triangle, it divides the right triangle into two small right triangles such that the small triangles formed are similar to each other and to the whole triangle. It means triangle AMB and triangle AMC which are formed are similar to each other and they are similar to triangle ABC also. Let's write that. Triangle AMC is similar to triangle AMB and that is similar to triangle ABC. Let's take a note of that. And there is another theorem. It says that for similar triangles, ratio of their areas is equal to square of the ratio of their corresponding sides. If I take ratio of triangle area of triangle AMC and triangle ABC, that is going to be equal to square of the ratio of their corresponding sides. Now, what are the corresponding sides? If I take hypotenuse of all these right triangles, they are going to be corresponding sides, right? For triangle ABC, we know that BC is the hypotenuse, right? What about triangle AMB? AB is the hypotenuse, right? For triangle AMC, AC is the hypotenuse. Let's write that. BC of triangle ABC, AB of triangle AMB, and AC of triangle AMC are the corresponding sides, right? Now, as per this particular theorem, whatever we have written just now, area of triangle AMB divided by area of triangle ABC is going to be AB divided by BC whole square, because the corresponding sides, hypotenuse of triangle AMB is AB and hypotenuse of triangle ABC is BC. Their ratio, square of their ratio is equal to ratio of their areas, right? That's what we have just now written. Similarly, we can write this for another pair of triangles, that is triangle area of triangle AMC divided by area of triangle ABC equal to AC by BC whole square, right? And as you have seen in the figure, triangle ABC is split into two small triangles, right? It means area of triangle AMC plus area of triangle AMB is going to be equal to area of triangle ABC, because these two triangles have formed out of triangle ABC, right? Now let me rearrange this particular equation. When I rearrange, I can write it as area of triangle AMC divided by area of triangle ABC plus area of triangle AMB divided by area of triangle ABC equal to 1, right? Means on both the sides I have divided with area of triangle ABC to this equation, right? Now we know area of triangle AMC divided by area of triangle ABC is AC by BC whole square, and this one is AB by BC whole square. Let's substitute that. This particular equation now can be written as AC square plus AB square divided by BC square equal to 1. Let me take BC square onto the other side so that I can write it as BC square equal to AB square plus AC square. That is what we wanted to show to prove Pythagoras theorem, right? We got BC square equal to AB square plus AC square. Hence, we can say that in a right triangle, square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of other two sides. Please note this theorem. This is called Pythagoras theorem. Let us solve the next question, that is choice 2 of question number 32. Check whether the following equations are quadratic equations or not and justify your answer. And we are given 4 sub problems. Let's start with the first problem. LHS of the first problem is x square x minus 2 whole square plus 1. right? We know x minus 2 whole square can be expanded using a minus b whole square formula, right? Let's do that. So x minus 2 whole square can be written as x square minus 4x plus 4 and keep the plus 1 as is. And when you simplify it, it can be written as x square minus 4x plus 5, right? Now let's write RHS, that is for 2x minus 3. This cannot be further simplified. So let's equate LHS equal to RHS. It means x square minus 4x plus 5 equal to 2x minus 3. Now what I'm going to do is I'll take this 2x and minus 3 onto the other side. This is called transposing, right? When you do that, you get it as x square minus 4x minus 2x plus 5 plus 3, that is equal to 0. You further simplify it such that you get it as x square minus 6x plus 8 equal to 0. We know that generic form of quadratic equation is ax square plus bx plus c equal to 0, right? X has got the power 2, or the degree of this particular equation is 2, and the degree of this particular equation is also 2. That is why we say that it is a quadratic equation. So let me write it. X minus 2 whole square plus 1 equal to 2x minus 3 is a quadratic equation. So we are done with first part. Now let's see the second part. LHS of the second part is x times x plus 1 plus 8, right? This can be rearranged and written as x square, that is x into x, plus x, that is 1 into x, plus 8. RHS is x plus 2 times x minus 2. This is looking like a plus b times a minus b, right? That is equal to a square minus b square, right? Similarly, it can be written as x square minus 4. Now let's equate these two, LHS and RHS. When you do that, you will get x square plus x plus 8 equal to x square minus 4. Let's rearrange this such that it can be written as x square plus x plus 8 minus x square plus 4 equal to 0. This x square and this x square can be cancelled, and now it becomes x plus 12 equal to 0. If you compare this particular equation with the quadratic equation generic form, you don't have term containing x square, right? The degree of this particular equation is 1, right? Hence, it is not a quadratic equation. So let me write that x times x plus 1 plus 8 equal to x plus 2 times x minus 2 is not a quadratic equation. Let's now go to third part. That is, LHS is given as x times 2x plus 3. That can be written as 2x square plus 3x. And RHS is x square plus 1. That cannot be further simplified. Now let's equate these two such that I can write it as 2x square plus 3x equal to x square plus 1. When you simplify it, you get it as x square plus 3x minus 1 equal to 0. This is looking similar to ax square plus bx plus c, right? Degree of this particular equation is 2. Hence, the given equation is a quadratic equation. Let me write that. X times 2x plus 3 equal to x square plus 1 is a quadratic equation. Now we have to see the fourth part. LHS is x plus 2 whole cube. A plus b whole cube can be written as a cube plus b cube plus 3ab square plus 3a square b, right? So make use of that and expand this formula. Expand the x plus 2 whole cube. That can be written as x cube plus 6x square plus 12x plus 8, right? And RHS has got x cube minus 4. That cannot be further simplified. Let's equate LHS with RHS. And when you rearrange it, you can cancel this x cube and this x cube. Now what you have is 6x square plus 12x plus 12 equal to 0. The degree of this particular equation is 2. Hence, the given equation is a quadratic equation. X plus 2 whole cube equal to x cube minus 4 is a quadratic equation, right? This is what we are asked to check. Now let's go to the next question. That is question number 33, choice 1. Draw the graph of p of x equal to x square minus x minus 12 and find the zeros. Justify your answer. To do that, let's generate a table. When I take x equal to minus 4 and substitute for x square minus x minus 12, then p of x is going to be 8. I take x equal to minus 3, then p of x or p of minus 3 equal to 0. X equal to minus 2, p of minus 2 is minus 6. X equal to minus 1, p of minus 1 equal to minus 10. X equal to 0, p of 0 is 12. Sorry, minus 12. X equal to 1, x equal to 2, x equal to 3, x equal to 4, and x equal to 5 we have tabulated. Now let's plot this data. You get a curve like this, right? As you see here, p of x becomes 0 at x equal to minus 3 and x equal to 4. X equal to minus 3 is this particular point and x equal to 4 is this particular point. This is your x-axis, right? Now the question is, why I have chosen x in the range of minus 4 to 5. How do I know that I should be taking these numbers? The reason is fairly simple. If you look at this equation, x square minus x minus 12, we know that using the split the middle term method, the middle term coefficient, that is minus 1, and product of other two coefficients is 1 times minus 12, that is equal to minus 12, right? So I can write minus 12 as minus 4 times 3, that is minus 12, and minus 1 can be written as minus 4 plus 3, right? It means the data set I have taken for x, the values I have taken for x should include minus 4 and 3. In other words, actually, since we are looking at zeros, it has to include plus 4 and minus 3. Right? That is how you get to choose the values. We know that if f of x is a polynomial and a is a real number, then a is called 0 of f of x if and only if f of a equal to 0. It means when I take x equal to minus 3, then p of x is becoming 0, right? And when I take x equal to 4, p of x is becoming 0. Hence, we can say that minus 3 and 4 are zeros of p of x equal to x square minus x minus 12, right? So we found the zeros. Now we have to justify the answer. How do we justify? Whatever zeros you got, you simply substitute them into the equation and see whether you're getting the value as 0 or not. As such, we have already got 0 for x equal to minus 3 and x equal to 4. But in some cases, what happens is, your 0 may be something like 2.5. For example, you have not taken that value while constructing this table. Then you have to verify it. Otherwise, also, one can verify quickly by simply substituting minus 3 for x and see whether you are getting 0 or not. Let's do that now. P of minus 3 can be written as minus 3 whole square, that is x square, minus times minus 3, that is minus x, minus 12. When you simplify it, you get it as 0. So let me write it. P of minus 3 equal to 0. It means we have verified one of the zeros of given polynomial, right? Now let's see P of 4, that is also equal to 0. Hence, I can say that P of minus 3 and P of 4 are equal to 0. so that minus 3 and 4 are zeros of p of x. That is equal to x square minus x minus 12. Right? Now let's go to the next problem. That is the last part of the question paper. Choice 2 of question 33. Draw a circle of radius 6 centimeters. From a point 10 centimeters away from its center, construct a pair of tangents to the circle and then measure their lengths. Verify by using Pythagoras theorem. We have 3 subparts into this. We have to construct 2 tangents and then measure their lengths and then verify the lengths using Pythagoras theorem. Let's do the first one. Draw a circle centered at O and mark point P outside of it, as shown here. Let's join P and O. As you see here, the distance between P and O is 10 centimeters, it is given. And the circle, even though I have not marked, circle radius is 6 centimeters. Now let's draw a perpendicular bisector to line PO. When I mean perpendicular bisector, it means I want to divide this into 2 equal parts. How do I do it? With the help of compass we can do. Let's say that you keep a needle of your compass at point P and draw 2 arcs as shown here. Right? Without disturbing the position of compass, you simply take the needle onto O now and draw 2 more arcs. These 2 arcs, pairs of arcs are intersecting, right? Cutting each other at these points. Now what I'm going to do is, let me draw a line passing through these 2 points. As you see here, it is dividing line OP into 2 equal parts. Let's write that. Point M divides line PO into 2 equal parts such that PM equal to MO. The next step is we have to draw a circle keeping the M as center and radius R as PM or MO. It means in this particular case it is going to be 5 centimeters. Let's draw that circle. Now as you see here, this particular circle has intersected with the original circle at 2 points, right? This is 1 point, this is another point. Let's name those points. Those points are now called A and B. Let me draw line AP and line PB. These two are called tangents to the given circle. PA and PB are the tangents to the given circle from external point P, which is 10 centimeters away from the center of the circle of radius 6 centimeters. So we are done with first part of it. Now we have to measure lengths of these 2 tangents and then verify using Pythagoras theorem, right? Let me connect A and O. That is your radius, right? OA is radius. That is equal to 6 centimeters. And we know OP is 10 centimeters. Quickly, let's take a measure of these. OP is 10 units on this scale, right? And AO is 6 units, right? Now let's take measure of AP. That is 8 units. Let's take a note of that. Now using Pythagoras theorem, we have to find AP value. AP by measurement we got 8 centimeters. Similarly for BP also you will be getting 8 centimeters. I have not done it, but if you take measure of it, you are going to get 8 centimeters for BP also. That is another tangent, right? Now let's make use of Pythagoras theorem. Let us consider triangle OAP right angled at A. This is a right angle, right? Because tangent is perpendicular to the radius through the point of contact. This is a theorem. So angle A is 90 degrees. It means OP is hypotenuse of this particular triangle, right? So as per Pythagoras theorem, OP square is going to be OA square plus AP square. We know values of OA and OP. This we know, but we don't want to use it. Actually, we want to verify that, right? It means we want to get what is the value of AP using Pythagoras theorem. So let's substitute OP equal to 10 and OA equal to 6 into this equation such that AP square you're going to get as 64, right? It means AP equal to root 64, that is equal to 8 centimeters. This is exactly what you got by measurement, right? Similarly, when you measure BP also, you're going to get 8 centimeter, right? I hope you like the video. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel, Learn to Score. Thank you.